A Life in Laughter, Cafe Conversations with Madeline Smith. In conversation with Bill Lawrance. Episode 3.
And in this conversation, Maddy talked about her rising stardom in the hugely successful Hammer horror film productions.
I dyed my hair blonde at this particular time. I'd gone from Vidal Sassoon red to my own terrible blonde mixture, which went green from time to time, but that is also another story. So I go to audition for this film, and they're looking for a really gormless girl, and I absolutely fitted the bill, what with my squeaky voice, my little skinny legs, my woolly jumpers. Perfect, I got the part. And it was to play the half-cut girlfriend of the wonderful actor Ian McShane. And the film was based very, very loosely indeed on a poem by Robert Burns, The Ballad of Tamlin, which is kind of about a sort of spider-like lady who entraps people. And the spider-like lady, the witch character, was Ava Gardner. And we all went, that is all the actors, Richard Wattis, whom some of you will certainly remember, wonderful actor, Ian, Ava, and I, went and stayed in the Peebles Hydro, which is about as grand as it gets, in the Peebles area of Scotland. And my little adventure while there, apart from having lots and lots of fun, meeting Joanna Lumley later and dear Jenny Hanley again, with whom I shared a bedroom when modelling, my tiny little but very amusing adventure was Sean Connery. Sean Connery was playing golf as he does, and he knew Roddy McDowall, who was directing The Ballad of Tamlin, and came to say hello, as did Lauren Bacall, I have to say, and Lee Remick. We were all having dinner one night in the very grand dining room, and Sean Connery, to whom I hadn't spoken, was sitting at the other end of the table. I go up to bed, well, as we all do in the end, and I trot upstairs, and guess what? I've still got the Brothers Karamazov under my arm. So, up I get, to my door, room next to Roddy McDowall. And there's some hot breath behind me, and it's Sean Connery. "Hello," he said. "You're going into your room. Can I come in with you?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm very, very sorry. I'm about to have my bath. And, and I'm reading my book here." He said, "Oh, that's all right. I'll run the bath with you, and we'll read the Brothers Karamazov together." Oh. To which I said, "Well, actually, no. Because Roddy McDowall is in the room next door. What I didn't put in parentheses was, and I'm a virgin, and I don't know what you're talking about, but that's another story too." So, with a very, very long face, Sean Connery mooched off. And when I saw him next day, guess what? I think you've all guessed, haven't you? I was studiously ignored. I stopped having this dreadful blonde hair. I was the girl with green hair. So I went back to something a little more natural and was sent to audition for Hammer films. Yes, I wasn't all that happy about that. I remember even when I was at school that the horror films were always shown late at night and outside your Odeon cinema or your Ritz cinema or your Gaumont. There would be, the main attraction, Doris Day, for example, and then a very, very small poster with some screaming lady and a man with blood hanging off his fangs, and not really to my taste. And they were always shown from sort of 11 p.m. onwards with, dare I say it, gentlemen with raincoats on, even when it wasn't raining. The problem was that by the end of the 60s and the early 70s, Nudity was all the rage, unfortunately. People had stopped going to the cinema because they were all watching their tellies, or they were out bopping and popping to the Beatles and so on. Cinemas were dead, quite literally dead. For example, where I came from at that time, Richmond upon Thames, 2 of the cinemas closed, and the third one had to turn itself into studios. So things were not good, and Hammer Films felt a rather stiff breeze. So I had a small part in a film called Taste the Blood of Dracula, and I had a very nice little part actually in that one, and I knew very little about the rest of the film. I just came in for a couple of days, had Geoffrey Keane riding on my back in a bordello. I didn't even know what a bordello was, or why he was riding on my back, or I on his, or indeed anybody on anybody's back. So a month or 2 later, I'm actually offered, as opposed to auditioning, this is already alarm bells are going, I was offered a part. Never ever accept a part without asking questions. Well, I got my script, and there was no mention of any nudity, and I had a phone call from the producer called, what's his name, Michael Stiles, over that Christmas period, because we started it in January, asking me about my my physique, my bod, my bosom. A very embarrassing phone call, because my mum and dad were actually in the kitchen at the time, and I really didn't know quite what to say, except that I said, well, I'll try and put on weight. He wanted to know if I had enough amplitude. And I said, well, I'll try and put on some weight, Mr. Stiles. And I dashed down to the dairy and bought as many yogurts as I possibly could, and I drank as much milk as I could get hold of. And, well, by January, things were all right, They'd popped out in all the right places. So, nice filming, nice script, great stuff, wonderful director Roy Ward Baker, great cast, and mostly really Ingrid and various dying maidens, because of course she played a vampire who falls in love and then bites all her victims, and then they die. At the point where I'm going to die, she bites me on the bosom. And Michael Stiles, who was the producer who'd been kind of brought in to hot things up for Hammer, came and whispered to me that I would have to take my top off, that Ingrid was already completely exposed and I would have to do the same. Nothing in the contract, nothing had been said until that moment. The director, Roy Ward Baker, was having puppies, and I knew that I would be in serious trouble if I didn't comply. So I took my chemise off, and Michael Stiles said to me, I really don't know why you're so worried about this, because it's only for the Japanese version. Ha ha. Anyway, it was a halfway decent little film, and then a couple of years later I was asked to make a much better film for Hammer called Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, with Peter Cushing and Dave Prowse and a lovely young actor called Shane Bryant. And I really, really enjoyed that, because it was all about acting with my eyes, because I was mute. And as my voice was still like that, just as well. Any actor, all actors, would do Hammer, because they were quick and easy. And what made Hammer films was not all the stars, but the character actors. And every character actor under the sun appeared in Hammer films, and that's why they're so darn good. I have to say again that Theatre of Blood was an independent film. Wasn't Amicus, wasn't Hammer, it was Dougie Hickox and his acolytes, and it was made on a shoestring. All these famous actors, Robert Coote, Diana Dawes, Arthur Lowe, Dennis Price, Robert Morley, Vincent Price, Diana Rigg, Ian Hendry, Eric Sykes. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Theatre of Blood was an independent, and it was the last one I did. And when I went to audition for it, the director looked at me with great disappointment. Oh, he said, his name was Douglas Hickox. "Oh," he said. Long pause. "I thought you were blonde." "That is because I'd just done the 2 Ronnies." And I said, "Don't you worry. I shall go to Vidal Sassoon tomorrow if you give me the part, and I shall be blonde by nightfall." And by gum, I did. I watched my hair go from tomato-coloured to blonde, and wasn't I stupid? Why didn't I say, this is how innocent and stupid I was, why didn't I say on the 2 Ronnies I wore wigs? Why don't I wear a wig? But no, I went the full length, and every day the lovely makeup lady used to pile my hair on top in a little sort of bun type thing, I think. Yeah, wonderful though. I did meet, at that time I met, can't think of the guy that composed all the Bond music.
John Barry?
Yes, I did. Not very nice though. He had a flat in the same penthouse where we were filming most of Theatre of Blood, and he invited me into his apartment to look at his organs. And when I said I had to go home and I had to ring my father, and my dad said to me, "You're coming home immediately," he wasn't very pleased. I'll leave it there. I was certainly looking for a cab all on my own, that's for sure. Coral Brown was wonderful to me. We were so busy and we were going, at the rate of knots to get this thing done. But Coral Brown said to me, very sweet, she said, "I like you in that dress. It had a halter neck." She said, "It suits you very well, my dear." But really there wasn't a lot of time for small talk. However, I do remember that lovely Diana Rigg and I were sitting in a gasworks together in Wandsworth. Of course, that's now been replaced by high-rises, but in those days there was a gasworks there near the river, and she and I were sitting on deck chairs, and I just remember the lovely small talk and chats that we had together. Actors are human beings. Ian Hendry, on the other hand, with whom I had worked previously, used to disappear and knock on the door of the local pub and be absolutely plastered. And one night, Michael Hordern, who was also in this film, said, "You are a very unprofessional actor," which was terribly unfair because it was about 11 o'clock at night and Ian Hendry had so many, many lines and actually did stupendously well. He just had a very, very small drinking problem, sadly. But he was lovely. I liked Ian very much. I loved them all. I loved them all.
That was episode 3 of A Life in Laughter with Madeline Smith.